Hey guys, welcome back to another video with How to AP Lang. Today we're going to be breaking down how to time your essays on the AP exam. So what are we going through here? Well, on your exam, you're going to have 2 hours and 10 minutes to complete 3 essays. And in this video, we're going to be talking about how it's best to time your exam, some suggestions on how you could time it, things like that. Of course, this is something that works best for you. Everyone's going to be writing differently. Everyone can have different writing strengths and weaknesses. You can be a great writer, but be a very slow typer. You can be a quick typer, but a bad writer. Whatever it may be, you should do what's best for you. However, this video is really trying to help you spark some ideas, some recommendations on how to time things like that. This video isn't really teaching you so much, it's just some skills that you can use on the exam to try to get as many points as possible. So there are 3 essays on the exam: the synthesis, rhetorical analysis, and argumentative essays. We've already done plenty of videos breaking down all 3, analyzing them, and even one recently where we spoke about how to get complexity on these exams. So here's an overview. There are 18 total points available. There are 3 thesis, 12 evidence, 3 sophistication points. And this is among all 3 of your essays. So in the 2 hours and 10 minutes, you have 18 points available. These points are worth more than obviously multiple choice points. I believe it's about 55% of your total exam score. So you can do the math, but whatever 1 point out of the 55% is how much of your grade is. I'm guessing it's about like, each point is probably like 2.5% of your grade, I guess. I'm not fully sure. That seems actually maybe low, like 3 points. Not sure, like whatever 3 times 18 is, I'm going to do this math. That's 54. So probably actually around 3% of your grade is each point. However, each point inherently is not equal because the thesis points are much easier and the sophistication points are much harder. So what this means is you really want to aim to get every thesis point. You should not be missing out on your thesis points. And you probably want to aim to get 3 to 4 evidence points on most of your essays. If you can do that, you're looking at a 15 out of 18, which is incredibly strong. That's definitely going to get you a 5 as long as you do at least like half of the multiple choice, right? As for if you should at least get those 3 thesis points because that's what your essay is based on. So you really want to get those 3. Even to get half the evidence points and no sophistication, that's 9 points. And even though that's half of your score, that's probably can still get you like a 3 or a 4 on your exam as long as you do a lot better on the multiple choice. So it's definitely possible to do well on this exam, even if you only get half of the points on your essays, which is really helpful. It really is a good way to try to show you how good this exam really is to you. But let's break it down. Here are some things with timing. Firstly, you have 2 hours and 10 minutes total. We said this a lot, but you're not like the timing isn't broken up per essay. There's obviously so many ways to suggest it. However, it's 2 hours and 10 minutes total. Here is the ranking that I have found for most people is the ranking of the easiest essays to the most difficult. So the easiest is the argument, then the synthesis, then the rhetorical analysis. So why do I have it this way? Well, I think everyone mostly agrees rhetorical analysis is the hardest. Rhetorical analysis, you have to read something and really break down the rhetoric of it. It's the hardest one that gets sophistication on. It's an incredible hardest one to get evidence on. It's a very challenging essay. The synthesis point is a pretty easy essay overall, actually. What makes it hard is that you have to read 6 sources to do well, even though probably 1 to 2 of them are probably images or graphs or something. The fact that half of them, not half of them, like a good more than half of them are reading these decent sized sources for it will really eat up your time. And that's a big piece of it. You're going to be tired. So that's why I suggest opening with synthesis, but we'll get to that later. But that's what's going to eat up time. My argument I find is the easiest, even though it's hard to come up with your own argument. I think some people will actually find synthesis to be easier. I feel like it's between argument and synthesis for 1 and 2. Because some people, I think, use the synthesis documents to help their essay, which I think is how you're supposed to do it. But also, is there a good way to warm up how they create it? Arguments, you really have to come up with your own thing. However, you have no restrictions, which I think makes it a lot easier because you don't have to rely on documents. What else? You have 40 minutes per essay, and it will leave you with an extra 10 minutes. So if you do 4 minutes per essay, you will have 10 minutes extra. However, that isn't, in my opinion, how you should do it. In my opinion, you should give more time or the most amount of time to your rhetorical analysis, probably about 50 minutes. And the reason why I say it's because the hardest, you're going to need to put more time into it. And you might think maybe I put the least amount of time into it and put more time into the other 2 so I can get like a 12 out of 18 on those. And then maybe I'll only get half points, but then that's like a 15 and that's still very good. So you can go about it any which way. And maybe less time to argument. I think the argument essay I think most people should give about 35 minutes, probably 30 is on the low side, because that essay you really don't have to work with a document. You're kind of just coming up with your own thing. And not to say that's easy. However, I think that's an essay where you really want to try to not let time break you down. I think once you start stretching to like 40 minutes, you're really spending a lot of your exam time on an essay that you really aren't relying on much, and it's very easy to get your points, especially for evidence. Sophistication, maybe you need more time, but I think this is an essay where you don't want to spend so much time doing that, and leave about 10 minutes to attempt sophistication on one of the essays. And this can be built into your time, but it's challenging to do so. So you can build sophistication into your like 50 minutes of rhetorical analysis. However, that's an incredibly challenging feat to pull off because that essay is incredibly hard on its own. So to put extra time into adding sophistication, of course, it's possible, especially if you're going for sophistication with just style points. However, even with that, that's an incredibly challenging thing to do. I think the only way you can really build it in is if you're doing like to go for the style and get a vivid, persuasive voice. But that is something you have to come into the exam with a very strong skill. If that's not something you can develop on the exam, and you can't really be hit or miss with it. So I think that's why I suggest that. Other things it will already be after an hour of MCQs. So you're going to be tired, disappointed, you're going to be exhausted. So do order, in my opinion, the essays provided. You want to start with synthesis, then rhetorical analysis, end with argument. So why that? You can do it in any order. However, I'm suggesting this. And that's because even though rhetorical analysis is in the middle, you might say, maybe I leave that towards the end so I can get my other ones perfect. Or you say, do it at the start so I have the most energy for it. In my opinion, you should do that in the middle because it's the best one to just leave it in the middle. You're going to have some energy. You're going to have warmed up with the first one. And you won't have to wait until the end when you're exhausted. In my opinion, you leave the easiest one, which is the argument essay, for the end, because I think that essay, because you're not relying on sources, I think you don't have to waste as much time. You have more of a time crunch. So you kind of just have to write. And I think that kind of will make you feel a little bit freer on it because you're not struggling to also read things. And have synthesis act as your warm-up essay. I think it's very hard to treat like an essay on exam as like a warm-up. However, because you have so much, how the docs are really helping you so much, I think you can really work with it so that essay is benefiting you rather than feeling like such a challenge. All of these are just recommendations, though. You should really do what's best for you. So I hope this video was somewhat helpful in helping you time out your exam, seeing how you could time certain essays, things like that. I think this is such a challenging thing to suggest how to do properly because there isn't a proper way to time your exam. However, I think you really should try to aim to get things done in a timely fashion so that you're doing well, so that you're getting things done, and that overall your essays are still strong by the end of 2 hours and 10 minutes, and you really didn't waste that much time. A good way to help with this, though, is that in the description below, there's a Google form where you can submit your own essays for practice essays, I should say, for the exam, not just like a school essay, but practice essays for the exam. You can submit it and I'll read it. I'll give you some feedback. So you can send that in whenever you want. That's in the description of every video from now on. So definitely check that out. That should be helpful. Aside from that, that's all I have for you. I hope this video was helpful in timing your essays on your exam. This was How to AP Lang. I'll see you guys next time.